Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mental Edge Trading and Psychology Podcast. I'm Sarah, a retired therapist turned trader, and today we're doing a deep dive into revenge trading. Okay, this is one of the most requested topics I get, and for good reason. Revenge trading is how most traders blow their accounts. And here's the thing I need you to understand right from the start is that revenge trading has nothing to do with how disciplined you are. Okay, what's actually happening is your nervous system is being taken over and you're losing the ability to think logically. So today we're going to break down the neuroscience of what's going on in your brain when you start revenge trading, why it feels impossible to stop in the moment, and then I'm going to give you 5 tools you can start implementing right now to interrupt the cycle. Okay, so let's jump in. All right, so first let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain when you revenge trade. Okay, most traders think revenge trading is about anger or frustration, and sure, yeah, those emotions are there, but what's really driving the behavior is something called the dopamine-cortisol loop. Okay, and here's how it works. So first thing that's going to happen is dopamine is going to spike before you even enter a trade, all right? This is our reward and anticipation chemical. So what happens is it rises in the anticipation of taking a trade, the anticipation of winning, the anticipation of the excitement of making money, or even just the possibility of making money, okay? So when this dopamine spikes, your brain is literally getting a chemical high just from the idea of the winning trade, not the actual trade itself, okay? So think about that for a second. What's happening is we are getting high off the possibility of winning, okay? And then the trade fails, or maybe it's not going your way, or you get caught up in chop, and cortisol starts to spike, okay? When cortisol spikes, cortisol is your stress hormone, okay? And it's going to create this panic response that sends you straight into fight or flight, and your brain is going to desperately try to fix the situation as quickly as possible. While your cortisol is spiking, what's happening is your brain starts craving more dopamine. So now you're getting flooded with this urge to get into another trade because the dopamine makes you feel happy while cortisol makes you feel stressed. So now your brain is screaming at you, get me out of this cortisol spike, give me more dopamine now. So now you're going back and forth and back and forth. It's a tug of war game between your cortisol and your dopamine. So what's going to happen is you're going to re-enter another trade. That trade's going to stop going your way. Your dopamine's going to crash again. Your cortisol is going to spike even higher. Your dopamine craving is going to go up again. Then it's going to crash again. The cortisol comes up again. And then you get stuck in this loop that just keeps repeating itself over and over and over again until you blow your account. And every single trade you take while you are in this state is going to strengthen this compulsive loop. It's going to erode your discipline, erode your self-control, and erode your mental stability and trust in yourself until you've gone and blown your account yet again and you don't even know what's happened. This is why revenge trading feels compulsive, okay? Because your brain is desperately trying to escape the cortisol spikes that are happening by chasing them with dopamine hits. And think about the last time this happened to you. Can you remember where you were in that loop? Was it the dopamine spike where you convinced yourself the next trade would fix everything? Or was it the cortisol crash where the panic took over and you just kept entering trade after trade after trade, hoping that something would land? Most traders I work with, they tell me that they didn't even realize they were in the loop until after the damage was already done and the account was blown. And that makes complete sense because this is happening at a neurochemical level, which is way below your conscious awareness level. It lives in your subconscious. This is something you cannot control. And by the time you are aware it's already happening, it's far too late. So why does it feel so impossible to stop in the moment? What happens is when your fight or flight gets activated, your body starts flooding with cortisol and adrenaline. And when that happens, you're going to start noticing this tightening in your chest, your racing heart, your sweaty palms. And when you take that loss, you're going to have this overwhelming urge to jump back in. This is a neurochemical response happening in your body that is way deeper than just an emotional reaction, okay? Your amygdala, which is your threat center, your fight or flight, what happens is it overrides your logical brain. This is what we call an amygdala hijack. And when your threat center, your fight or flight, your adrenaline, it completely takes over, your logical thinking brain gets shut down, you do not have the ability to think logically. You do not have the ability to take control and make a logical decision unless you learn how to take control, okay? And we'll go over that in a little bit. But when your amygdala sees these losses, what happens is it doesn't interpret it as just market noise or just part of the game of trading, but as an existential crisis. And it's going to cause your cortisol to spike and executive function to completely shut down. And then you're going to flip into fight or flight mode, okay? This is why a small loss turns into overtrading. A bad trade that's not going your way turns into revenge trading because your prefrontal cortex, the logical thinking part of your brain that normally oversees all of your logic, all your discipline, all your rules, everything like that, it gets shut down completely and you have no control over it anymore. So why does this happen? This is because money is our number one survival resource. Thousands of years ago, it used to be we'd go hunt and gather for food and we'd have to find shelter and everything like that, and we'd have to forage for all of our resources, right? Well, now Money is our number one resource. Money pays our rent or our mortgage. Money buys our groceries. Money gets us everything. So when we are willingly risking our money in trading, the brain doesn't see that as, hey, we're trying to get ahead. Hey, we're trying to build something for our future. The brain sees it as, you are throwing away valuable resources. We don't know what's going to happen, and we need to get those resources back as quickly as possible. Why does this happen in trading but not in business? Because in business, you understand, your mind can understand, if you put in the effort, if you put in the money, you're going to get XYZ results, okay? It understands the delayed gratification process, and it knows that there's going to be an outcome for the investment typically, okay? And if not, it happens over a long enough period of time where the brain has been able to come to terms with losing that money if the business doesn't work out. But with trading, what happens is we lose those resources so fast in a matter of minutes, because typically in revenge trading, from the moment you take that first loss to the time your account is blown, it's roughly about 5 to 10 minutes, okay, on average. So what happens is in a business, yeah, like I said, the brain can process slowly and over time. If the business doesn't work out, okay, we have done enough, we have spent enough time processing this, and I can understand why we lost the money. But when it happens in 5 to 10 minutes and you blow an account, the brain can't process making or losing that amount of money in that short amount of time. So that's why it freaks out, because then it's like, danger, danger, all of our money's going away. I don't know what's happening. I'm scared. I'm freaking out. I don't know how to stop this. I can't process what's going on. And the brain is going to take over to try and protect you and protect itself, because the brain's only job is to keep you safe, to keep you alive. And when it sees your resources dwindling like that in a matter of minutes, it's going to freak out and do whatever it takes to get you back to what it thinks is perceived safety, okay? So I really want you to sit with this for a second, okay? Because your brain does not know the difference between being attacked by a lion and losing a trade. This is what I'm talking about, one of your survival instincts. To your brain, both of these situations require the exact same response, and that response releases stress hormone. It's going to prepare you for action, prepare you to survive. So when traders tell me, oh, I just need more discipline, I just need to try harder, and they brush it off like it's no big deal, I have to stop them right there, because you cannot out-discipline a dysregulated nervous system, okay? You cannot out-willpower a cortisol spike. That's like trying to think your way out of a panic attack. It just doesn't work that way. Now, here's where my background as a therapist comes in. In my years of working as a children's trauma therapist, I saw this exact same pattern in kids who couldn't regulate their emotions. A child who experienced trauma would typically go into fight or flight over things that seemed really small to us, but to them, to their nervous system, that threat was absolutely real. This is because trauma doesn't operate only off stored memory. Trauma operates off bodily responses, okay? So the racing heart, the tight chest, the shallow breathing, that is what triggers you into fight or flight. That is what trauma stems from. That is what triggers your trauma, triggers your flashbacks, is the bodily sensations. This is why you can have something traumatic happen as a kid and think you're completely over it and everything's okay, and then trading, which is going to trigger those same exact bodily sensations, not memories, as the traumatic event, that's going to send you spiraling. It's going to send you back into potential flashbacks or depression or anxiety spirals. This is why, even though they have nothing to do with each other, they are directly correlated through the bodily sensations you experience. And both of these things, the brain is trying to keep you from getting hurt, okay? And the same interventions that worked in therapy to help those kids regulate their nervous systems, those same tools work in trading. Because at the end of the day, what you're dealing with when you revenge trade is a nervous system that thinks you're in danger. So to become a consistent, profitable trader, we need to learn how to train it that you are not in danger. And that comes from learning how to work with your biology and not against it. And here's something most traders don't even realize. When we revenge trade, yeah, we are freaking out because we're losing survival resources. That's what triggers the revenge trading. This is just the sudden loss of our number one survival resource, okay? But when that loss happens, what happens after that is feelings of failure start setting in. Your self-worth starts feeling invalid. And now what originally triggered you, yeah, was the money being lost, was your survival resource being lost, but what fuels it is the need to prove to yourself that you are worthy, the need to prove to yourself that you are good enough, that you can do this. And that is why you start revenge trading to get the money back. That is why you can't sit with the loss. Yeah, it sucks. It's going to trigger you right into fight or flight instantly if you lose those resources, but it's going to get 100 times worse with every single trade you take after, because every single loss you take after, every little bit of chop you get caught up in after, it's just another little dig into your self-worth. Another little piece of proof that you're not good enough or worthy enough to have the life you want to have. And the trade now becomes about restoring your identity instead of following your edge while you're using risk as a tool for emotional regulation. When this happens, you start trading to relieve tension instead of exploiting good setups, okay? And this is going to cause you to close trades early to avoid potential emotional pain instead of following what the market is actually trying to tell you. Your revenge trade to restore your sense of identity instead of your account balance. This is why we're inconsistent in trading. This is why we struggle to overcome our emotions, because the mission keeps changing every single day based on how our nervous system is feeling in that moment. And let me tell you about my rock bottom moment with revenge trading. This was earlier in my trading journey, and I had just enough money in my funded account to pay off the remaining balance of my student loans. You know, it was an $80,000 student loan balance, and I had $8,000 left. I was so excited. I was so close to being done with debt, and I was so excited. I only needed one more $200 trading day, and I would be debt-free forever. And if you don't know my story, my husband and I have paid off over 6 figures worth of debt between student loans and credit card debt, cars, everything like that. And I only needed one more $200 trading day to be debt-free for good. And I was so excited. I was so attached to that $8,000. This has been my goal for years, and I'm finally going to get it. My worth was so attached to that last $8,000 payment. And when I sat down at my trading desk that morning, the first trade of the day was a loss. And instead of stepping back, instead of following my plan, I sized up to make it back and jumped right back in. Because in my mind, I wasn't just losing $200, I was losing my freedom. I was losing what we had worked so hard for. I was losing the title of being debt-free was slipping out of my fingers. I could see it with just that one single loss. And I was losing my chance to finally be done with these loans that had been hanging over my head for years. I just wanted gone so badly. And let's be honest, you know how the story ends already. I ended up blowing the account in a matter of 15 minutes because I wanted that payout so badly that I completely lost sight of doing the right thing. And I did whatever I could to get my profits back, and I lost it all in the process. And that moment taught me something really critical, okay? I wasn't revenge trading because I was greedy. I was revenge trading because my entire identity was wrapped up in becoming the person who could finally pay off those loans, the person who could finally achieve her goal of being debt-free. It was a conversation I'd had with my husband every day for years. Like, oh, here we are. Here's how close we're getting. We're almost there. We're almost there. And it was finally like, okay, I woke up that morning saying, today's the day. We are officially debt-free. It's going to be great. And when that trade failed, it felt like I had failed as a person, okay? And that's what revenge trading really is. It's your nervous system trying to restore your sense of self-worth through market outcomes. And that never, ever works. All right, so now that you understand what's actually happening, let's talk about what to do about it, okay? I'm going to give you 5 tools, all right? And these are nervous system interventions that physically reset your body so your logical brain can come back online. So the first tool is to track your tension before you enter the trade. So before you enter a trade, I want you to rate your current body tension from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least, 10 being the most, okay? If your bodily tension is above a 6, if your body feels above a 6 tension-wise, pause for 5 minutes before you do anything, okay? Risky behavior is typically tied to high arousal. So when you pause, what's happening is you're lowering your cortisol levels and restoring access to logic, okay? This exercise is about giving your prefrontal cortex, the logical thinking part of your brain, a chance to come back online before you make a decision and potentially hurt your account, all right? If I had done that on that day I blew my account, I would have been able to catch myself because my tension was at a 9, my chest was tight, my hands were shaking, but I ignored all of it because I was so focused on getting that last $200, all right? The second tool is the Micro Move Reboot. So what I want you to do is stand up, shake out your arms, inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, fill your belly, don't raise your shoulders, and exhale through your mouth like you're blowing through a straw for 6 seconds, okay? And repeat this 3 times. What this does is when you move your body, it disrupts emotional momentum, and when you can disrupt your emotional momentum through physical movement, you are able to reset your nervous system and get yourself back to baseline. And I know this sounds almost too simple to work, but your nervous system responds to physical cues. So if you're sitting there frozen in your chair, staring at red candles, staring at every bit of chop you're getting caught up in, your body is going to think the threat is still present. But when you stand up and move, you are physically telling your body that the threat is over. Because what happens is that discipline forms from a top-down processing, meaning that discipline is formed based on the knowledge and experience you have gathered. So if you have full ported your account trading news, you have gained the knowledge and experience that, hey, you probably shouldn't be doing that. But when your emotions take over, what happens for something with a top-down processing, the only way to regulate it and bring it back online is through bottom-up regulation. Okay, you got to meet in that middle ground, that stabilization area. And the way to do bottom-up regulation is to start with the body and move to the mind. Because your bodily sensations are what trigger your subconscious mind. And when that happens, the logical thinking brain cannot come online. So you cannot regulate, you cannot think logically, you cannot be more disciplined until you calm your body through bottom-up regulation. And by doing that, by standing up, shaking your arms, taking your deep breaths, what this does is it creates a break in that automatic loop that you're stuck in. First off, it's going to process cortisol quicker through your body to allow that to release. And then it's also going to slow your heart rate down. And by doing that, those three things, what happens is it's going to signal to your brain that, hey, we're safe, everything's okay, the danger is going away, or the danger is gone, and it's going to allow you to think logically again and make a logical decision. No, your emotions will not go away, but you will be able to think logically again, okay? And I see this all the time with traders I work with. So many of you guys have messaged me after a loss and tell me like, oh, I did my deep breathing, I did my Micro Move Reboot, I did 20 push-ups, and I can't believe how much calmer I felt afterwards. Honestly, I know it sounds like magic, too good to be true, but this is just how your biology works. And when you learn to work with your biology instead of against it, that's when you can master your mind, master your charts, master your trading, your discipline, anything you want, okay? The third tool is to call yourself out in real time. So if you are already in a revenge trade and you know it's risky, say out loud, this trade was taken from emotion, not strategy, okay? When you say this out loud and call yourself out and in real time, what this happens is you reduce shame spirals, you dim your emotions, and you break the automatic thought loops and allow your logical thinking to come back online, okay? And when you are saying this out loud, calling yourself out in real time, it's really important to touch on how much it reduces the shame spiral specifically, okay? Because this helps you build honesty with yourself after the trade, which is going to help you actually grow from your mistakes instead of just beating yourself up about them. This is how you start transitioning from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, because when you get caught in revenge trading, typically you're just going to spiral and you're going to blame yourself and get stuck in that shame. But if you can be honest with yourself and just say, hey, I took this out of emotion, not strategy. That removes the shame from it when you're just stating the facts. It's like, we all make mistakes. We've all done it, okay? And when you can be honest with yourself and learn how to grow from your mistakes and just be like, I did it. I shouldn't have done it, but I did it. Like, okay, we can move on. And that's how the growth mindset starts. This is how you start transitioning from growing and learning from your mistakes instead of letting them control you. What this is called is creating metacognition, meaning you're observing your own thoughts, and that observation alone activates your logical thinking brain and starts pulling you out of that emotional spiral you're stuck in. And one of my clients told me that she keeps a sticky note on her monitor that just says, say it out loud. And every single time she feels the urge to revenge trade, she looks at that note and it reminds her to pause and call herself out. It is simple, but it is incredibly effective. This is a great way to stop panic attacks, a great way to stop revenge trading, a great way to stop any emotional outbursts that you're struggling with. The fourth tool is called the damage cap protocol, okay? So what I want you to do is create a hard rule right now. One emotional trade equals shut down the charts and journal. This rule establishes a firm boundary that feels like safety instead of punishment to your brain. But you have to stick to it. You cannot give in to your emotions once you've set this boundary. So if you take one emotional trade, you tell yourself, okay, I'm done for the day and I'm gonna go journal about what just happened. Because when you over risk, you're being greedy about control, about the dopamine hits, about trying to regulate your emotions, and over risking is about using your trading to regulate how you feel. This damage cap protocol, this one firm boundary rule you set with yourself, that interrupts this pattern, okay? And you're basically saying, I am not going to let my emotions call the shots anymore. I have a boundary and I am going to protect it because I deserve to protect it. This is the one protocol that would have saved my account that day. If I had just stopped after that first emotional trade and journal about what I was feeling, I would have realized that I was in no shape to trade and I was trying to restore my identity instead of making smart trades. And the fifth and final tool is to pause and name what you actually need. In that moment, when you're about to take an impulsive trade or you feel the urge to chase a loss, your nervous system doesn't actually need more market exposure. What it needs is regulation. So when your nervous system is craving a sense of safety, control, relief from the tension that's been building in your body, what it thinks will help is a quick win, but what actually needs to happen is you need to slow down and discharge the emotional intensity instead of just reacting to the discomfort. So pause, even if it's just for 30 seconds, and do a physical grounding exercise. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise is one of my favorite ones to do. What this is you name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So I can see my water bottle, my computer, my couch, my TV, and a lamp. I can touch my back on the chair, my desk, my phone, and my computer mouse. I can hear the road noise outside, my daughter laughing upstairs, and the heater going on in the next room. I can smell the air freshener in the room and the onion I had in my omelet this morning. And the one thing I can taste is the onion I had in my omelet this morning, okay? Do you see how long it took me to do that? It typically takes anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds to do one of these grounding exercises, but that is so much focus dedicated to your physical senses around you that it's going to force your emotional mind to be turned off and your logical brain to be forced on, okay? Because emotions and physical senses live in two different parts of the brain. The emotions live in the subconscious, while the physical senses live in the conscious, okay? Meaning your emotions and physical senses cannot be focused on both at the exact same time. So if you are feeling anxious, if you are feeling overly excited, if you're having all these emotions, anger, fear, frustration, whatever it may be, do this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding exercise, because what it's going to do is it's going to cause you to focus on your senses so hard for just a short amount of time that it's going to be enough to completely shut down the emotional brain and turn your logic on completely, okay? The emotions aren't going to go away, but you're going to be so hyper fixated on your senses around you that you will not be able to give your emotions any thought, and that's going to dim them significantly, and you're going to be able to regain control of your trading afterward. Or if you don't want to do that one, another one you can do is place your feet firmly on the floor, push your back into your chair, hold a warm drink, do your breathing exercises. What these do is they bring you right back into the present moment instead of keeping you stuck in that emotional spiral, all right? And then after you do that, what you want to do is name what you're feeling. Just say it out loud. I'm anxious because I'm afraid of failing. I'm panicking because I think this loss means I'm not good enough. And instead of letting your emotions control you, you are acknowledging them. And when you acknowledge something, it can't control you anymore. And that alone starts to regulate your nervous system and bring you back to the center baseline where you can think logically and be stable again. And here's what I want you to understand, guys. Every time you use one of these tools, you are doing way more than stopping a revenge trade in the moment. You're actually rewiring your neural pathways. So let me explain what I mean by that. Your brain has grooves in it, okay? These grooves are typically the beliefs that you hold about yourself, the patterns you've repeated over and over again, and your thoughts are like marbles, okay? So every single time you think a thought, a marble rolls down one of these grooves. And if you repeat that same thought enough times, like I'm not good enough, I always mess up, I can't control myself, what happens is that groove in your brain becomes so deep that the marble automatically falls down it without you even having to consciously think that thought anymore. And then you spiral typically straight into self-hatred. That's what was happening with my revenge trading. I had a groove that said, you're only worthy if you succeed. And every time I took a loss, that marble went straight down that groove so fast I couldn't even catch it. I never even realized what was happening, okay? My nervous system just knew that's where it was supposed to go. And by the time I realized it went there, it was far too late. But when you use these tools and you follow through on them, you start creating new grooves, okay? New neural pathways that are tied to regulation, healthy trading, healthy beliefs about yourself, and you start carving out a new groove that says, I can handle losses, I can pause, I can regulate myself, I am worthy regardless of what the market does. And the more you force the marble down these new grooves, the shallower those old grooves get, until eventually the new grooves become the automatic thought grooves, and you have to force the marble down the old grooves, all right? You can change the pathways in your brain. You can change the way your brain is wired. It just takes time and consistency. You didn't get to be the way you are overnight. It took years and years of consistency to get to be that person, okay? Which means that you can't undo it overnight either. It's going to take a long time and consistency to undo those old thought patterns, undo those old habits, and to make new ones for yourself, to make healthy ones for yourself. This is how neuroplasticity happens. This is neuroplasticity in action, okay? This is how you literally rewire your brain to become who you want to be. Learning to work with your biology, not against it. And these tools, they stop the dopamine-cortisol loop that you get stuck in, because instead of letting cortisol flood the system after a loss and having dopamine come spilling in with cravings to fix it and trade again, you end up creating a third option for yourself. You end up breaking that loop and going into a new direction when you're choosing to pause, reflect, regulate, and that brings the entire loop to a halt. All right, guys, so let's wrap this up. What you're dealing with when you're revenge trade is completely normal. I know gurus on social media are going to say, go back, test more, practice more discipline, yada, yada, yada. But your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, okay, which is to protect you from threats. The problem is your brain can't tell the difference between a lion chasing you and a losing trade. So you can't just try harder. You can't just be more disciplined. You can't just back test more and it'll all magically get better. You have to interrupt the cycle at the physiological level which is what these 5 tools do for you, okay? Track your tension before you enter. Do the micro move reboot when you feel yourself spiraling. Call yourself out in real time. Implement the damage cap protocol and pause to name what you actually need. This is how you retrain your nervous system. This is how you build tolerance and scar tissue so losses don't take over your trading anymore. Your brain is just doing your job. I know that you could go to the gym and get the body you wanted. I know that you could build a business and get it to be successful the way you want it to be. You are not an undisciplined person. I know that. But your brain is just doing its job. Your job is to teach it how to do a new one. And here's what I want you to do right now. Pick one of these 5 tools, just one, okay? Don't try and do all 5 at once or you'll get overwhelmed. Just pick the one that resonates with you most and commit to using it for the next week and see what happens to your mindset. All right, guys, that's it for this week. If you found this helpful, please share it with another trader who needs to hear it. This is the Mental Edge Trading Psychology Podcast. I'm Sarah, and I'll talk to you next week.